Hey Maddsters! So you guys, this video is gonna be like pretty good. It's like a full-on informational video. You know, most of my videos are like just me talking, but I really went outside my comfort zone, like made a whole slide deck for this and spent a lot of hours on this, okay? Big news, I started a website. I will link it below. It really is just a great place for all of my videos. I have a portion on Michigan videos and then Hungry Maddie, like my recipes and stuff, which is super fun as well. So I'm really excited about that, but I spent quite a bit amount of time working on it, so I hope you guys really like that. But today's video is going to be about off-campus housing at the University of Michigan. My shirt is from The One, which is a brand new housing development area, I guess. They're doing a ton of marketing efforts on campus and handing out free shirts, so more information about them will be in the following segments. Everyone like talks about the dorms and stuff, but then it's like, what are you supposed to do after your freshman year when you're out of the dorm? So at Michigan, most of the time only freshmen live in the dorms, and after that, sophomore year, if you're in Greek life, you live there, or otherwise you're in a house, an apartment, or there's co-ops. First of all, I just want to say housing in Ann Arbor starts like so fast. Like seriously, you're on campus, okay? Say you get there beginning of September. By November, actually by October and November, like people's leases for the next year are already signed. So for me, that was really overwhelming because I'm like, okay, I literally don't know anyone here. I don't know people well enough to be like, oh, I want to live with you for the next year. You know, I'm signing a lease basically a year in advance, which is really stressful. So that was one of the reasons why I joined Greek life, or I decided to rush, because then I would know, oh, I don't have to look for housing. I'll just live in the sorority house. So that was one idea, but you guys, like housing in Ann Arbor is insane and leases are signed so early, which I really don't like because like a lot can change from, you know, November to August when you end up moving in. But kind of the process for that is if you are a freshman, you find a group of friends that you want to live with, start looking into various apartments or start touring houses. So a lot of this information will be in my next segment where I talk through it all, but this is kind of a brief overview. So first you want to find your roommates and figure out, okay, what are our priorities? Do we want an apartment? Do we want a house? Like, who's bringing a car? Is anyone going abroad? Where do we want to live? Because the campus is huge, so location is fairly important. And then kind of what are our roommate deals, I guess? Do we want cheap, where we might have to share a room, or do we want to be more expensive where we might not have to share a room? Kind of stuff like that. So definitely have your rules set in stone because the housing process is absolutely terrible. I actually had a slight housing issue. So I signed a lease in November, and at that point it was really late. Like we were stressing out because we were like, oh my gosh, like this lease, like we're not gonna get a house, you know, because no one knew what they were doing. So it was just a terrible experience. And I spent literally hours like on the phone with the various landlords to see when we could tour. And because it was COVID, like no one was letting us go into houses. So we were like, okay, how are we signing a lease for a house we have never even seen? We finally figured one out like in November. And then I was like, oh, I kind of changed my mind a little bit. So that was a whole other issue. Thankfully, I found someone on Facebook who is willing to take over my previous lease so I could sign at a new lease. So that is extremely rare, extremely difficult to do. So thank God that I was able to find someone to. I don't recommend doing that. What you're gonna want to do is join the Facebook pages. So Umich Housing Facebook page, I don't know, it's all on Facebook. Join those and start looking for places. People will be posting about subleases or lease takeovers or like houses that are available. So definitely join those and see kind of the rates of the rent and then the places that are available. It's the summer right now and people are still looking for houses and housing in general. They're always looking for extra roommates, always looking for like subletters and stuff. So if you don't have your lease signed by like December, don't worry. I know it feels very stressful because everyone around you will be like, oh, like I'm living here next year or whatever. But most of the time Facebook will save you and you can find some place to live and it'll all work out. I hope you guys like this and find it informative, and please let me know if you have any other questions. Okay, you guys, I am literally so excited about this because you guys, I put in so much time into this for you guys because I feel like it's something that you guys definitely need to know. I wish I knew all this before I did my housing stuff and everything because housing, like I said before, is a complete total mess. Ugh, so annoying. Biggest headache ever. At the University of Michigan, there are apartments, houses, Greek life, and then co-ops that you can join or live in after your dorm experience. So I'm going to do my best to explain them all as best I can and to the best of my knowledge. I have yet to actually live in an actual house or an apartment. My freshman year, I lived in the dorms. My sophomore year, I lived in my sorority house. And so now I'm going to go into my junior year, in which I will be living in a house. So this is just a rough outline and a map. So here is the main campus area. So like, I think this is the diag. This is just where all the classrooms are. And so this is State Street. So you guys know State Street. I love it. And if you go north of it, up here will be a lot of high rises, like the, tall apartment complex and buildings. This street here is South U. So that's another big street in Michigan. And so over here, there will be more high rises as well as most of the Greek life houses. So the Greek life house is kind of back here into the side around here. However, if you go south of State Street, you get down to the athletic campus, as you can kind of see like the stadium big house here. And so in this area, there's a lot of houses. So that's kind of like the layout of the main areas that you can live. Oh, also, I forgot, if you keep going north, you'll get to Carytown, which is mostly houses. So that's just kind of far, but they're fine houses. So here's just another map. It's a little closer and more zoomed in. So just a better picture. Here's the diag once again. North State Street area with the high rises, Southview and Greek life. And then the athletic campus is down here. So the athletic campus didn't make it on this map. Also, this map is a little outdated because I know they kind of changed things around a little bit, but it's just a good reference. I like this map. First, we're going to talk about apartments. So you guys probably all know, you've seen the high rises if you've visited campus. And so normally there's 1 to 4 people living in apartments. So you can do a studio, a double, triple, quad. I think there might be some with 6 people, but I'm not 100% sure. Mostly it's 1 to 4. They are the most expensive, especially the high rises. So those will go for, I said about $1,100 a month, but it's usually more. If you get the really nice ones and the really nice locations, those will literally go for like $1,600 to even $2,000 a month. So that is definitely like the most expensive. However, there are apartment complexes. So there's like smaller buildings. They are not high rises, they're just like normal buildings with apartments in it. They're not as fancy, definitely not like all bougie or anything, but those are around like 800 to 900 a month. But you might have to pay for utilities. I'm not 100% sure. I think it depends on the apartment building. And then apartments will usually have a 12-month lease. So if you are going away for the summer, you will have to find a subletter. And so some of the pros is that most of the apartments are in a really great location. The next slide, I'll show you a map of everything. So those are really nice. They also have really great amenities. So some of them will have pools or like deck hot tub kind of thing. They'll have a gym, study areas. So the amenities are really nice, really great, like, it's a really nice area. And you don't normally have to pay for Wi-Fi, water, electricity, which is good too. You might have to pay for laundry though. It kind of depends. And then the cons are that they're very expensive. Like I said, they're also pretty small. It's your basic apartment. So probably like a room, a common area, and then a kitchen. And then you might also have to pay for parking depending on the, complex area that you're in. And parking can get extremely expensive. So bear that in mind if you have a car. And so we are on North State Street. So as you can see here, here's the diag, and then here's State Street. So these are the main high rises on State Street. So here's the Foundry, the Hub, Union, the Varsity, Z West. They're all pretty standard. The Hub's kind of far, so that's probably about like a 15-minute walk down to the diag. But Z West and the Varsity, those are fairly close. However, the con, I guess, is that there's no big like nightlife scene around here. I guess it's far from Greek life.
There is one bar here-ish, I think, Skeeps or Scorekeepers, so that's, like, kind of the main bar in this area, but otherwise, you would have to go down to Southview if you wanna go out or anything, and these are fairly expensive, usually at least $1,000 a month, but definitely a great location and, all the great things with an apartment. This is the Southview area, so here's a diag, and Southview is down here. So these Vic Village and 611 are the most expensive. They're gonna be about like your 15, 1600, even up to 2000 a month, depending on the room. But obviously they're in a fantastic location, literally like right on campus. So I guess you get what you pay for. U Towers is one that is can be cheap. So it's about, I think it's a little over 650, probably around 700 a month if you get a complex with 2 rooms but 4 people. So, you would share a room. So it is cheaper that way. However, I've heard U Towers is like kind of hit or miss. So some people really enjoyed it. Some people have had like a lot of problems there. So it's kind of like at your own risk, to be honest, but it's fine. They're all pretty much the same thing. More expensive usually than this North State Street area here, around 1300 a month. I would say even more than that. That's just kind of on the lower side. But the pro is that they're obviously close to campus and there's a lot of nightlife. So here, the main bars are like Cantina, Good Time Charlie's, and then Rick's. Greek Life is down south and to the east here. So it is much closer. It is pretty much the best location on campus. However, you do pay a lot of money to live here. This is the yard. It's far, okay? So we're up here by the diag ish, and it's a solid mile to get to the yard. Like I go on runs, so I run to the yard a lot. But if you're walking there, it's going to take you at least 20 minutes. Otherwise, they do provide shuttles to get you to and from campus. It's just like kind of a hike. It's right on Main Street. So Main Street is a street here. I love Main Street. It's like State Street, but with a lot more restaurants. So it's really great. The amenities are really nice. I know they have a pool, the free coffee and lounges. I've just like read off their website. So yeah, I've never actually been in any rooms here, but from the looks of it, it's super nice, still extremely expensive. And then a really big con is that it's really far from campus. So if you're walking to campus, it's going to be like a solid mile. So that's kind of tough. But at least you're on Main Street, which is just a really great, awesome area. And then this area complex is brand new. They are opening in the fall of 2021. So this past semester, they were leasing a ton and they're doing a ton of advertising. So, like I said before, I have their shirts. So there you go. I looked on their website. It looks like they're pretty booked. However, it's like literally like a 10 to 15-minute drive to campus. So the one is all the way up here, which is kind of crazy. So it's like you're back in high school and having to drive to school again. So there are shuttles that they provide you, but it's just like really far and pretty expensive too, over $1,000 a month. However, the main draw is that they have really great amenities. So they have a really nice pool from the looks of it. Again, this is just from the website and their pictures, but they have pool, pets. I saw they had free tanning, a free coffee bar. Like it's brand new. And I'm not 100% sure if it's apartments or condos, but it looks like it has more space than a normal apartment in a high rise. So I guess it would be kind of like a condo. So it doesn't seem like a bad place to live. Like they definitely marketed it really well. It looks really nice. Like everything's obviously brand new. However, it's just really far. So I would say, like, I guess I kind of considered looking into it just because it looks so nice. But also, I don't want to, have to ride a bus or in a shuttle to get to campus. But then again, that's kind of similar to what you'd be doing if you were on North Campus. I guess to each his own, but it looks really nice. Moving on to houses. You can have I said 15 people living in there, but it kind of depends. You could get a single room in a house, so like a duplex or something. So that's why I said one. You'd be like, why would you live in a house alone? Most people don't. And then 15, actually, some Greek life, they have like their satellite houses. And so the older members of the fraternity or sorority will live in a special house with like 15 of them or 12 to 15. Rents, I would say probably over 800 normally. If you can find something for 700, like that's really great. And then you do have to pay for utilities, which will probably be another like 100 a month. So I guess compared to apartments, it's like slightly cheaper. And then most of them are 12-month leases, so you would or you could consider subletting. Some of them are 9 months. It's extremely rare, but I would say there's a higher chance of it being a house with a 9-month lease rather than an apartment. And then, like I mentioned before, you can get duplexes where it's like one house with like 12 rooms and you kind of like rent out a floor or something with your group. So that's kind of how it goes. And then the pros, once again, slightly less expensive and then more space. So if you have a house, you might have a yard, you have your own kitchen area, which is sometimes kind of big. You might have a basement or an upstairs area, maybe a larger living area. So you just have more space. And then also, depending on the house, there can be free parking, which can be really nice, or like a small fee for parking. So that's great. But the cons are you do pay for utilities, Wi-Fi, water, electricity most of the times. So that kind of, eats into your budgets. And then also, I guess a con would be that there is a larger living space. So you kind of have more responsibility, I guess. You got to kind of take care of a lot more things. And then there are unfortunately no amenities for housing. So you won't have a gym, obviously, unless you bring your own supplies, no real like study area, no pool or anything. And then houses are usually farther from campus. Most of the houses are on the athletic campus. However, they're kind of sprinkled everywhere, but I would say the majority of houses are down like South State Street. Here is a closer look of like the athletic campus. Obviously, normal students live here as well. There's a lot of Greek life students who live in this area. This is Intramural Sports Building, and then this is Yost. And then down here is like the athletic center. So that's why a lot of athletes live down here, just because their facilities are back here. But here are the main kind of roads where people live. People also live up here as well in houses. It's pretty far, or I guess farther from campus, usually 10 to 15-minute walk. Sometimes, depending on the bus routes, you can take a bus to get up there. It is usually cheaper, but it is far from campus and, any sort of nightlife going out kind of thing, just because it's so far south. But definitely a great alternative. And there aren't just houses here. Like there's houses sprinkled throughout, like on Southview and in that area, as well as North State Street. So yeah, just putting that in there. But I would say is the main area. And so I made kind of a little guide for housing. So here are the main, well, not all, it's not an exhaustive list of landlords, but here's a good number of landlords that own a lot of properties in the Ann Arbor area. I am sure I'm missing a bunch, but here are the ones that I was looking at when I was looking for houses. And then when you start contacting your landlord, here are some questions that I would ask. So first of all, just ask to make sure that you're paying for utilities, because most of the time you are, but there might be a time where the landlord includes it into your rent. So not sure, but majority of the time you will pay for utilities, but it never hurts to ask. And then laundry, definitely ask if there's laundry in units. Most of the time there are, like in the basements, but always ask. And then parking, ask if that's free, included, if you have to charge for it, especially if you're bringing a car. If you're going abroad, just make sure that you can still sublease, because, that would kind of suck if you sign a lease and they say, no, you can't sublease. I haven't really heard of anyone not being able to sublease, but it's always just good to check. And then check on your move-in dates, because sometimes leases go May to May and some go August to August. So that kind of really changes, your living situation or what you're going to do for move-in. So make sure you ask about that. And then also ask about it being furnished. So ask if there's beds, desks, like couches, dining room tables and chairs, so lamps, everything. Ask what furniture will already be in there, so you're not, like double buying furniture. So these are kind of the main things I like to ask, just to like make sure I understand what I'm responsible as a tenant and then what the landlord is responsible for. And so moving on to Greek life, I believe that frats do not have as many people living in the house as sororities. I think it's around 30 kids. I might be wrong though, but sororities, you're definitely looking at 50 to 60 girls most of the time. And so rents, I wasn't sure about the monthly, but overall, it's very similarly priced to a dorm, at least $11,000 a year. And then you are also paying your dues as well. And I would say the whole experience is very similar to a dorm. And then it is a 9-month lease, obviously. And so the pros is that it's probably slightly less expensive than dorms. However, you are paying your dues and extra sorority costs. I would say it would, level out to about the price you pay for dorms. And then you do live with a lot of people, so you do have, a good social life. You get to talk to people. Like I said, extremely similar to dorms, just kind of like in the scaled down version. There are meals included. So I know sororities, you do have chefs. Well, I had a chef who would cook stuff. Unfortunately, we did not get meals on Saturdays, but the days that you don't get meals really depends on the sorority. So I know other sororities like didn't get meals for the whole weekend. So it really depends, but the meals are included in the overall rent total. So that is nice just because you don't have to cook or anything. And then there are some amenities. So for mine, we had a study room, we had a craft room, we had a little like workout room. Those are some things you wouldn't get in a house, but you would also get more amenities in apartments. And then a con would be that you live with many people. So if you weren't necessarily keen on the dorm situation, having a public restroom, like you might not like living in a Greek life house just because there's like a ton of people living in there. And it was also difficult with COVID. And similar to a dorm, you just have a smaller living space, singles, and then up to quads. So you might have 3 roommates, which, can get difficult. And then they are usually slightly farther from campus. It really depends on the house that you're in. So it kind of depends on your location. And then you might have to pay for parking. So at least for mine, it was $100 a semester. So that's actually like super cheap for parking, but it depends on your organization, how many spots they have, and then how much it is. You guys, I worked so hard on this map, okay? It's kind of wonky because I combined a bunch of maps, but like you guys get the idea. Obviously, pink is sororities, blue is fraternities. I'm 90% sure that I got all of them in. If I missed one, I apologize. But like you guys, I literally like hand placed every single one of those little red dots, okay? We're here at the diag. There's only fraternities that are like really close. So there's Sigma Chi, 85. These two have, to be honest, the best location. They're right next to West Quad, literally right next to the Michigan Union. Here's like Ross area. So Tridel and Katie, those two sororities are there. And as you can see, as you go down South U and over this way, this is where most of Greek life is. Maybe pause this video and like take a look where everything is. Oxford housing. So the Oxford dorm is right back here. So you will be by, a lot of the nightlife and social life. And then as you go around, like around here, there's a bunch of neighborhoods, like literal like families living there. I'm like, why would you live in this area? But whatever. Pretty nice. I usually run around there sometimes. Here's where the map gets a little wonky. So sorry about that. But this is Hill Street. So this is kind of another popular street for Greek life. And then back down here on Washtenaw is Scrappa. And you guys, like one time I only know where Scrappa is because I went on a run and I got lost. And I was like, I don't know where I am. And I see like their house. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so far away. So like if you're in Scrappa, that's going to be like a 15-20 minute hike up to campus. Of course, there are buses that run around these houses, solid 15-20 minute walk. Over here, probably about 15-minute walk to campus. I think it's a pretty good map. Okay, you guys, I did a lot of research for this. Pros are obviously it's really close to like nightlife, Greek life, obviously because you're in Greek life, but it is far from campus. But anyways, so one of the things about Michigan housing is that since it starts so early, you kind of have to figure out if you want to do Greek life early. So for me personally, I didn't want to look for housing as a freshman. So I decided to rush and I was like, well, I'll just live in the house. So it was fine. Most of the time you live there as a sophomore, occasionally as a junior. You guys, I just want to like sit on the screen for a little bit just because I'm so proud of it. Like this took me way too long. Finally are the co-ops. So most people don't know about these. I feel like they are university affiliated. And so it's usually 20 to 30 people, mixed gendered. And rents, this is the cheapest option. So it's going to be $500 and $900 a month. It's with a 9-month lease. And so the pros are that it's least expensive and you live with a group, so you get your social events, which is good. There are also meals included. I'll kind of talk more about that. It is very similar to a sorority or fraternity. I didn't even think about that. It's a little different, but similar. And the cons, once again, you're living with a lot of people. So if you don't really like shared living spaces, this probably is not for you. And then the main difference are that there's these weekly chores. So the whole point of a co-op is like live together and work together. So I don't know. From my understanding, this is just what I read on the website. You have like a house meeting and you're like, okay, this week, like Maddie, you're going to be, sweeping the floors, and this person's going to be like doing the dishes. This person's going to be like taking out the trash. So you have your responsibilities to live in a house and kind of all live together, and you each have your own responsibility kind of thing. It is very niche though. So different co-ops will have various themes that go along with them. So you kind of find people with similar interests. So I guess to an extent, it's kind of like the MLCs or theme communities where you're living with people who have similar interests. And going off of that, of course, there's an application for it. I don't know how competitive it is, but I would assume it's somewhat competitive. I mean, it's like rent could be as low as $500 a month. So I would say it's fairly competitive. And then a con is they can be far from campus. Here's a map. I didn't have to make this, so that was good. This is on their website. As you can see, there's some up here, kind of like North State Street, Carytown area. Like this is Zingerman's here. And then there are some in this area by West Quad and the Union, which is kind of nice. And then otherwise, a lot down here by Greek Life a little bit, and then a lot more houses. So kind of depending on where you are, it'll be a 10 to 20-minute walk to campus. There are 16 houses, so a lot of variety. And for the con, I said weekly chores because like that's just kind of annoying. But if you live in a house, you're gonna have to do chores anyways, or an apartment even. So like I mentioned before, there are different themes for each house. So there's like vegetarian, vegan, sustainability, LGBTQ, and then there's like kind of out there ones. There's like, I don't know what your fun aunt means. And then there's some kind of like cozy chicken and cats, but they look fun. Like I walked past them or ran past them as well, and they're always like out there having a good time. And then their big idea is like kind of more democratic living. So that's when you have your housing meeting, you have your separation of chores, and you just have like unified group decision making. So I think it's a good way to meet more people, still have a social life, and it's way cheaper. So if you're interested, I would say look into it, and it's like super cheap. So that's really nice. So here's a quick recap. I hope you guys found this helpful. Obviously, apartment, the most expensive, but in general, apartments are normally, or at least the high rises are closest to campus. There are various apartment complexes, which are farther, like kind of more on the outskirts, which is why they will be cheaper. And the apartment just overall has really great amenities. They got your gym, your printer area, your study area, your lounge area, the hangout area, theater, stuff like that. Houses, these are super popular. You'll probably, I would say, guess on average pay between $800 to $900 depending on your rent and the cost of your utilities. It is nice that you have a bigger space, however, it can be farther from campus, give and take on that. And then Greek life, obviously only if you're in Greek life, fairly expensive. I would say it's probably around $13,000 a year. Really depends on the group that you're affiliated with and your dues and stuff. There are a lot of people living in there, so kind of like a scaled down dorm. They can be fairly far from campus. However, meals are included, and there are some amenities. I would say Greek life is just kind of like dorms 2.0. And then finally, the co-op, very inexpensive, somewhat similar to Greek life in the fact that, it's very social, your meals are included, somewhat far from campus. They're all kind of actually in the same area. However, it is very niche and application based. But you guys, I hope this was helpful. I apologize if some of the information was slightly inaccurate or off. I did the best research that I could. I spent a lot of time on this, okay? So just please like it. Anyways, I don't know everything about, the nitty gritty of, apartment, house, or co-op because I've never lived there. but I can do my best to help you guys.
Okay, you guys, that was a lot of information. I am sorry it was really long. Please let me know if you have any questions. Like, the housing process absolutely is terrible and awful and a terrible experience in general, okay? So don't worry, it's extremely overwhelming. There aren't very many resources about like housing, off-campus housing in general, so I hope this was helpful. Definitely join those Facebook pages and I guess try to get a head start if you feel comfortable with that. But if you don't feel comfortable, like, don't do it, because you don't want to be stuck in like a position that you don't want yourself to be in. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, MaddieKim16, and then go look at my website, you guys. It's like so good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye, Maddsters.